Hi, everyone. Jean Roberts here. I was born in Grenada, a small island in the Caribbean. And if you have looked at my other videos, you would see that. But for all the new people, I now live in Canada, in Kenmore, Alberta. I came to Canada in the mid 80s and I had lived in Ontario and now I live out here in Alberta. I used to live in Banff, Alberta, in Canada, Leiden National Park, which is one of the most beautiful places in this country. And I invite people to come out and see the place. Now, I am in a series. I'm really discussing my spiritual journey, and and I left off. If you haven't watched my video yet, it's best to watch the video before this one because, as I mentioned, this is a series, and I left off where I was in my bedroom at my ex-husband house at the time, our house. We owned the house together, and I was in the spare bedroom, and I was experiencing this full body passion. That's the only way I can describe it. And I mentioned that, I was in love with someone else, and but I took that love and I harnessed it. And somehow it seems like spirit, at the time, I didn't know what that was, but what I did know was I was just feeling like my body was on like a vibrating kind of a system, like my all my cells in my body was just vibrating. And it was around that time that Elizabeth Gilbert wrote her book, Eat, Pray, Love. And I must say that Eat, Pray, Love really has been the catalyst for changing my life and really given me the understanding that I am on the spiritual journey. And so I read Eat, Pray, Love, but at the time I was going through, although my body was in this vibrating state of mind, and what I learned later, it's that was the Kundalini awakening inside of me, but I didn't know that at the time. But so after reading Eat, Pray, Love, I understood for myself that I too was in a crisis. I really resonate with that book. I spent days, in a state of breakdown. Um, I was burnt out. I was exhausted. I had a business that I was running. I was married at the time. I wanted something different in my life. I didn't know what it was. Although at that time I was going from church to church. Well, there was this little church in Banff, and I was living in Banff at the time, if you don't know that. So there was this nice little church, St. George in the Pines. That's the name of the church, St. George in the Pines. They always have a board outside, a notice board that says, the church is open for prayer. So you can go into that church anytime. And I don't know if you guys have ever experienced going into a beautiful, small, steeple kind of church. It's all white outside and they have all these beautiful glass windows. It's such a beautiful church. And I loved going into that church and sitting and praying to Mary. And as I mentioned before, I had read A Woman's Worth by Marian Williamson. And she did say, go to a church and pray to Mary. And that was one of my favorite things. I didn't know how to pray, but I decided if I speak what is on my heart, that itself is praying as well. So mainly if you want to learn to pray, you can speak what is on your heart. So now here I am, just finished reading Elizabeth Gilbert, Eat, Pray, Love, and having the understanding that I too is in a breakdown. I hadn't have left my marriage yet, and that would happen a few years later. Everything take time, people. Everything take time. But as I sat and I read that book and I listened to her and Oprah discuss the book because, Oprah has been discussing um, a form of spirituality for many, many years. I think she started like in the mid 90s, like around 1994, somewhere around there, when she started having all these different kind of guru on her show. And um, Marianne Williamson was one of those spiritual guru that came on her show and pray for people and all this thing, but people wasn't even really yet accepting that, although they say that's when the spiritual, the spirituality, had taken off, right? I still think it hasn't really taken off yet because there's many people in the world who need some of that. So after reading Eat, Pray, Love, and recognizing and seeing myself in Elizabeth Gilbert, especially in the breakdown, in the burnt out, in not knowing what to do, in asking for help, but there's nobody there. One of the things you have to understand too is, yeah, without saying, I'm a Black woman, and right now, but at that time, I was living in a very, very, very white environment. When you come to Banff, Alberta, the people that actually live here, they are all white people. And so making friends was challenging for me. Finding a community was challenging for me. So mainly I had my husband and a few friends, but nothing serious, nothing to really write home about. My friends and them actually, I don't even think I liked my friends at the time. The people that I had as my friends wasn't people I like. It was people I was working with. And and I used to tag along, but I knew then that I didn't really, I don't know, it's hard to express what that was because I didn't have word for it back then. But anyways, after reading Eat, Pray, Love, I decided to Google ashram. And I believe that I read Eat, Pray, Love in 2009. It must be sometime around 2009 because it was around the end of 2009. That's my timeline. That's what I'm remembering. I can go back and research it, or you can Google when Eat, Pray, Love came out. And I remember going and searching online, searching Google for an ashram because I knew that I needed to be at an ashram. I was like, and then I found ashram in America. There's lots of ashram in India. And around that time, a lot of people was going to India to do their own thing, right? But for me, I was so fortunate. I found an ashram right here in Canada, 6 hours away from Banff, right? And so this ashram is in BC, Alberta. It's called the Yashoda Ashram, and it was founded by this woman from Germany. She was a dancer, Swami Radha. So for you guys who knows about Swami Radha and the ashram, well, Anyway, so I look up ashram and I found this ashram really, 6 hours away. So I decided to go to this ashram in January. And I think I remember taking the Greyhound bus to get there. I think I took the Greyhound bus and then another bus, because back then I was driving already, but I wasn't driving this kind of long distance myself. Or maybe I did drove myself because I drove myself many times. But anyways, I got to the ashram. I went there for 4 days, January of 2010. And that, my friend, that is when my journey into spirituality really began. I didn't know it back then, but I knew that time that that's when it began. I got to the ashram, and for 4 days, I keep asking this question. Actually, I would say 3 full days. I've been asking, I had this question that I've been asking who I am, who I am. When I arrive at this ashram is on Kootenay, overlooking the Kootenay Bay area, and it overlooked the lake. And it is a beautiful place that this woman really, I don't even know how she'd have done it. I'll tell you Swami Radha's story as I go along. At some point, I'll tell you the story and why it is I continue going to this ashram. But when I arrived there the first time, I cried for days. I cry for every single day. The ashram, the grounds there, was a place where you know for sure that people have been praying for years. She established this ashram in, I think, in the late 50s, early 60s. And you can tell that the grounds, people have been praying there. And the ashram welcome everyone. So if you know about ashram, it's not just a holy place for a specific religion. It is a place for people to come and get to know themselves. And for 3 days, I asked myself the question, who I am. Who am I? Who am I? As I walk around that ashram, I walk around the grounds and cried. And by the fourth day, I truly got the answer to who am I, and I'll continue this in the next video. So stay tuned. Right now, I have some almond drops in my oven, and I can smell it. It's ready, so I have to go. Don't forget to like, to subscribe, and to share this with your friend. Because if you just begin in your spiritual journey, I guarantee you, I can take you to a place where you can get started. I love you guys. Thank you for visiting me. Like, subscribe. I am practicing. So if you have anything to say, any feedback, you can throw it in here. Thank you so much. You have yourself a good one.